Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Thank you very much for joining me. Our patient is our favorite AM86A that has been baked. It has been baked in the oven, the regular kitchen oven. Now why would someone bake their ECM in the oven, might be the question you ask. Excellent question. Well, the short answer is that because it misfires. Isn't that intuitive? If your ECM misfires, you put it in the oven. I'm not sure what temperature, but I'm pretty sure it's around 220, 250, something like that. So barely above the water boiling temperature. That's at least what I heard. Go ahead and do your own research if you're interested at which temperature to bake your ECM. Now, does this actually resolve the problem? It doesn't. But it does help for maybe a week, maybe a couple weeks, right? So that's why people do it. Now, I do not recommend it, but instead, let me show you what you can do. So what you're gonna need is a toothbrush, isopropyl alcohol 99%, preferably 91% if you can get 99%. Should do as well, but it's better if it's more concentrated. You're gonna need some kind of hot air gun. It can be pretty much anything. This bottom over here that I have that comes with the hot air nozzle and with the soldering iron, they're around, or they used to be around 50 bucks. Now with the tariffs and stuff, it might be maybe 70 bucks, maybe 80 bucks. Not a huge investment. The one that I use, 861D, that's around $300 device. A lot better, but you really don't need anything better than that. And final thing that you're gonna need is flux. Pretty much any RMA flux will do. You can use different compounds, but important is that you use NC flux because you don't want to deal with corrosion. Now this is the flux that I produce and I sell. The link is in the description if you want to give it a try. It's a little pricey because it's small batches and stuff. I'm working on reducing the price, but at the moment it is a little pricey compared to Chinese fluxes. Now the source of the problem is our IC608. So assuming you don't have anything other than what I just described, maybe some kind of tweezers or something to poke the chip with, all right? So first thing we're gonna do is just clean the conformal coating from the chip to expose the solder. For that I use alcohol and a regular toothbrush. Now you can use anti-static toothbrush, as some people recommend. You can use a regular paint brush. That will also work, but it'll take a little longer. And the better you clean it, the easier this will be. Now just dry it with the paper towel. If you do use my flux, I recommend gloves because my flux is a little sticky. It's rosin based. It's completely organic, non-toxic. Fume extractor is recommended, but I say it's not necessarily required. I don't use it, I live. So now we're ready to reflow. So what we're gonna do, number one, just to prevent any damage, we're gonna cover the harness and the cap with aluminum foil. And to do it properly, first you need to preheat the board. You can't just direct hot air to the chip, blow on it for a few seconds and expect the solder to melt. This whole part of the board needs to warm up. So first thing that we do is we take the nozzle, and from a solid distance we're just gonna blow for a little while, maybe a couple minutes. It kind of depends on your ambient temperature. This is pretty small board, it's not very thick, it heats up relatively quickly. That serves two purposes. Number one, it'll make it easier for you to reflow the chip. Number two, it's better to slowly heat up the board. If you heat up the board very quickly in one spot, it might warp, it might deform, it might even delaminate. Once your board delaminates, you're done. because the laminated boards will have issues with vias. Those little holes over here, they will stop making good connection once the board delaminates. Okay, now the board should be preheated. Now we can check with the thermometer, and our chip is at 130 degrees Celsius. The board is at 116, 115 and dropping. So the board is preheated just enough. So now let's get our flux, get it ready. Now we're gonna hold the nozzle much closer to the chip, and now we're gonna reflow it. So first we're gonna heat it up, just wave around it so it heats up uniformly, but you can also point it like this and just hold it. That will work as well. Now once we're at the temperature, how do you know you're at the temperature? Well, you can check with the laser. We are at 135, so that's not quite hot enough. We need to be at around 200. You can also put the thermocouple underneath the board. The temperature underneath should be around 140, 150. Then the top should be at 210, 220. You don't need higher temperature than 220, technically, but don't set 220 on your header. My header is set to 380. You read those temperatures a little differently than what you do with the IR heaters. Now, once we're up to temperature, we're gonna put flux around it, right? You don't need too much, just a little, but make sure it's everywhere. I'll let it soak nicely. Now we're ready to actually reflow the chip. So we close up the nozzle to the very chip, and I just tap it from the top. Just gently tap it and see if the solder is moving. Once you see the solder is moving, you're ready to just tap on the side of it just to move the chip a little bit. Let it just jump back into position. You need to be very careful with that. You don't want to make any bridges in between the pins, nothing like that. Let's get a little better light here and keep blowing. Now you can touch the solder with your tweezers to see, this one is molten, but the chip is still holding with the big ground plane underneath. So it's not quite ready. You need to be patient with this. It would be ready to be lifted right now. If we were replacing it, we will replace it, obviously. I'm just showing you what you can do instead of putting it in the oven. And there. You see, and the chip is swimming. See, I tapped on it and it comes back to its position, right? You can tap on the top, right? And you're pretty much done, right? At this point, the chip has been reflown. Now, is that gonna resolve your misfires? It will not, but this will definitely give you at least, I would say, a month of good, smooth driving, right? The engine should stop misfiring for, I would say, at least a couple weeks, maybe a month, maybe even more than that. But what is better in this situation is to just remove the chip and replace the entire solder. So it should lift very quickly now because it's still hot. And there. Now let's get rid of all this old solder. If you do it when the board is hot, it should be nice and easy like this. No pressure, no force in any way. Just gently move the wick across the board and it should soak all that old solder. If it's giving you problems, it's not hot enough. Or perhaps you need more aggressive flux, but I recommend just doing temperature alone. Don't use aggressive flux. I mean, if you know what you're doing, then obviously, go nuts. It's not that aggressive flux is made for a reason, right? We still use it. It's still very usable, very needed compound in your shop, but don't use it unless you actually have to. Choosing a proper flux for each job is part of this skill. When it's hot, it is also a lot easier to clean the flax, but sometimes, especially when it dries out like this, because we've been heating it up for quite a while, it might be a little more time consuming to remove the flax. But again, this is NC flax. Technically, you don't have to remove it. But before replacing the chip, you want to clean the board and put new flax on. And this is pretty much what you want to see. Nice clean pads, not a speck of solder anywhere, and no damage to the vias over here or all of this, right? So this is done for now. We're gonna tin it in a minute, but first let's do the chip, because then we have to switch the tip on the soldering. So the chip is cold, so let's put some flux on it. This is my new batch. It works really well. Each batch is very similar to one another, right? There are no key differences in those. However, if you need more aggressive flax, you can just let me know when you make a purchase, and just let me know that you want the aggressive flax, the corrosive flax, and I'll make you a batch of corrosive flax. Chip, stay in place. Now this is roughly what you want your chip to look like, and the reason we do that, the reason we clean it, is because now we need to inspect for any corrosion. If you see any one of these pads a little darker, a little grayish, that means it's corroded. In some cases you can get rid of that corrosion with more aggressive flax. Just keep wicking, put more solder on, keep wicking, and the corrosion might go away. Not guaranteed though. Whenever I see corrosion on the chip itself, I just replace the chip. They're not very expensive and they are available. However, you need to get them off AliExpress. I don't think they sell them on eBay anymore, but maybe they do. They used to. Now we want a little bit of our awesome flax. Chip is warm, so as you can see, it just very nicely covers the chip. Now, since it's the fresh batch, the viscosity is a little bit different. Over time, it'll thicken up a little bit. Not much, but it'll thicken up a little bit. Also, it greatly depends on the temperature. So my tube was next to the board, so hot air was blowing on my tube a little bit. So the tube is warm, way above the room temperature. So it's a little more. It looks different, right? Now what we want to do is just tin the pads, and for some reason the chip won't stay today. I don't know why. Why do you not want to stay here? Is your problem, Mr. Chip? Let's see now. And more flux, and the center. Very nice. This doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, because we're gonna solder it on, and we're also going to tin the board. I don't know if I have focus. Yeah, this should be good. So let's clean it again, just so we can inspect it. Okay, I want a little more flax, and because the solder blob doesn't look good to me. It's typically it looks like this when it's been overheated. So let's try to make it nice and shiny, like this. Sometimes it's the sign of overheating, sometimes it's the sign of contamination. If you didn't remove all of the lead-free solder off the chip, then it might look a little rusty, right? You want it to look smooth and shiny, like this. That's much better. Yeah, this is what it's supposed to look like. It could actually be a little more shiny, but chasing perfection usually ends in failures, unnecessary failures. Okay, now it looks the way I like it to look. There, and the chip is ready. Now it's drowning in flux, but that's fine. That's why we use gloves. So let's put the chip aside and back to our board. Now with the board, the idea is the same. First let's preheat it a bit. because it's going to make tinning a lot easier. Now the flux, solder on the tip, and just tin those babies like this. There you go. Now we're going to reuse the same flux. It's a lot of it, so the chip is going to be floating everywhere. So let's just get rid of some of it. We don't need that much flux. That should be it. Let's remove it from the cup over here. Put the chip back. Align it roughly. Get some anti-glare light perhaps. Maybe reduce this light a little. Just whatever works. And now our patience is going to be tested. I remember first time I was doing this, or my first jobs of this kind, what I struggled the most was this stage. How do you heat up the chip and align it? So I wish I knew all of what I told you just now. I wish I knew that from the very beginning. It would make my life a lot easier. So the key component here is the solder is on the chip. The sufficient blob of solder is underneath the chip. That will allow the chip to just kind of float on the surface. And there's solder on both on the pads of the chip and on the pads of the board. So those should melt and they should just pull the chip into position. That's the best possible outcome. Sometimes you didn't put enough solder on the bottom and the chip doesn't want to float. That is fine. It'll still work. You just need to align it manually. And it might be a little frustrating because it's gonna burn you, it's hot, maybe shaky hands, or maybe the chip is perfectly aligned, or almost perfectly aligned, and you just want to tap it a little bit from the side, so it's perfect and it moves significantly, and now you have to realign it again. So no, don't chase perfection. It might just be very frustrating. We lost focus again. I don't know why, but that's what this scope does. At this point, as you can see, the chip is solid, right? But it's not floating. It's not soldered on correctly. It's out of focus. Oh yeah, I saw it. Now the chip is floating, and as you can see, it jumped back into position. So the same idea as it was when we just reflow it. And there. I don't know what's wrong with this, but this is very frustrating when the scope keeps losing focus. That's a $300 scope, and it's crap. Yeah, and now I saw it. It hit minus. It's gotta be from the ring light. That's, well, let's confirm that. Now without the ring light, it should keep the focus. Yeah, looks like this is it. The ring light is causing the scope to just constantly receive a button press for reducing the focal length. $300 for this crap. Jesus. It looks so good on the pictures. Okay, but we're not done yet. First, let's clean around a little bit to inspect the alignment. But the alignment looks good. I can see it. Oh, well, it's not perfect. The bottom, yeah, the bottom's not perfect. Let me show you. So you see, the bottom is shifted very slightly. The top also. So the chip is overall shifted slightly to the right. As far as the top bottom goes, the pins on the left and on the right, they seem okay, right? These are aligned and these are aligned. But this one, you can see that it shifts a little bit to the right. Now this is perfectly fine. It will work perfectly fine. But it just bothers my OCD. So I'm gonna chase perfection over here, which I always recommend not doing. But I've done it so many times that I'm not afraid of this. You know, I know it's not. I know I'm not gonna damage anything. But if you end up with this alignment, this is perfectly fine. You don't have to chase perfection here. And the main reason is that I was working at the lower zoom level, so it's a little harder to see. Plus, you have plenty of flux around, so it's kind of hard to see. So you just kind of rely on the chip to pull itself into position. But as you can see, either we don't have enough solder on the ground plane, or it just wasn't hot enough. I don't know, or I tapped it in the wrong way, and that's what happened. So now, is this aligned now? Yeah, I say this is now aligned to my liking. It could still move a little bit, but again, we could do it for hours trying to get it perfectly. Now at this point, if 2 tries didn't get it done, then probably not enough solder on the ground plane, which means you would have to lift the chip, put a little more solder on the ground plane, and do it again, and that should resolve the problem. And this is something that took me the longest to gain proficiency. Rework the pins. This is very important. Without this step, this is not gonna work. So all we want to do is just put solder on each pad. Preferably the exact same amount of solder, but also don't chase perfection on this either, because it's difficult to get it perfect. And there. So now let's clean it and we should be done. And we're done. This is our chip now. So what we want to see, let's do autofocus on this. So you want to see every pin soldered on correctly, soldered on roughly in the center, and we want to see roughly the same amount of solder on each pad. Now we can see that it is shifted a little bit, right? It's shifted down. So now the solder is pointing a little bit down. But as I said, this is completely fine. It doesn't have to be purely in the center. Okay, yeah, this is fine. It looked at the other angle, it looked like it was kind of separated. But this side, the side of the ground, is the side you're gonna have the most issues with. Trust me on that. But if you get it right, this is what it's supposed to look like. So I guess it's your choice whether you want to put it in the oven, whether you want to reflow it, or you want to do it properly. This guarantees that there's not going to be misfires for years. The longest lasting subject is, I don't know, around 3 years, something like that. No issues for 3 years of heavy use, daily driver. Alrighty, hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one.